crypto warriors, changing our world day by day. The way of the crypto warriors, can't rely on the bankers, no way.
Good morning, Bix Weir, roadrunner.com with your morning horn disease, your sip of chaga coffee. All right, debt ceiling drama. As predicted, they announced an agreement over the weekend. It was a ridiculous agreement, of course. Neither side is happy with it. The question is, does the United States, at this point in time, being the largest debtor nation in the world, does the United States want to pull the plug? Yes, I do believe this has been scripted for a very long time. I don't think that the date is specific to, it's not like they said, okay, here's the date and we're not going to kick the can, because they have been kicking the can for over 100 years on this. It was always inevitable that we would go off the unbacked fiat monetary system. Question is when and how and things like that. Lindsey Graham had always said, not Lindsey Graham, what's his name? I forgot his name. Anyway, he always said Europe would start first. There'd be 2 weeks of pain in Europe, and then the U.S. would follow. I don't think so. I think the U.S. is the leader in this. The U.S. holds the computer code to click the stop rigging the market button. The U.S. did it on September 11th in 2008, when half a trillion dollars left the money market funds instantly. And literally, we had hours to go before the whole system shut down. I think we're going to see that again, except it's not going to be a save. It's not that it's not too big to save. Of course, we can save anything. When you have an unbacked fiat monetary system, money made of computer blips, the difference between $100 billion and $1 trillion is one little tiny zero on the Treasury's ledger. The whole thing's just ridiculous. But how much pain do they want to cause in the transition is the question. Right now, so people are looking at the agreement, and both sides are saying, what the fuck? This is not what we signed up for. And of course they're not going to agree. Again, they can't agree on toilet paper in Congress. But that's the ultimate question. Will they come to a resolution, sign it, seal it, and move on for another couple years? So I did a reading with Jenny Moonstone a couple weeks ago about this. This was like 2 weeks before. At the time, it was projected date of June 1st. And listen to what Jenny said. This is on the private road. Listen to what she said about it.
The first question I have is something that is at the forefront.
I got it on faster speed just because I always listen to things at fast speed.
And that has to do with the debt ceiling. So the debt ceiling is a fixed number. We're about to hit it, and theoretically, legally, the Treasury cannot go anywhere from there. You can't issue more debt. You can't pay your employees of the Fed. You can't pay Social Security. You can't pay the interest on the debt or principal on the debt. Theoretically, now there's all kinds of ways of kind of skirting it. But what I want to know is something very specific, and I wrote down: will the debt ceiling be raised by June 1st, coming up in a week and a half or so?
So June 1st was the day, the soonest day. Janet Yellen has since kicked that date back to the Monday. Very interesting. Monday, remember that the FDIC wants a 3-day weekend to shut down the banking system and steal everybody's money. So keep that in mind.
Will it be?
Can't they just print more money?
Legally, no. The Fed can. But the U.S. Treasury is required by law to get approval for any spending from Congress.
Okay. But they're gangsters. They can do whatever the hell they want.
There's gimmicks. They're talking about creating a $1 trillion platinum coin.
Jesus.
Which legally, they can legally.
So asinine.
That's exactly what happens is you basically call into question the asinineness of the system anyway. So
will the debt ceiling be raised by June 1st, 2023, the year of our Lord?
There you go.
Queen of Swords, High Priestess, Death, and the Hanged Man. So the Hanged Man and the Death card. So as far as it being raised, this looks far more consequential as opposed to when you consider going in and adjusting things, you go in and you're like, oh, let's move it around. Like, no, this looks more like you had your fucking chance. Okay. Like, and pardon my language, I got 1 or 2 F-bombs.
This is the private road. You can say whatever you want.
It's the private road. So, Queen of Swords tells me no more, F you type of thing. Queen of Swords, she's not lenient. She doesn't let anybody get away with anything. We have the High Priestess, which is, it's the unknowns. It's all the stuff going on behind the scenes. I don't even really, this is all the unknowns, right? But then we have the Death card and the Hanged Man. So we're going from 13 to 12. Typically what we want to see with a nice progression of something, we want to see them go in sequence. But because this goes from 13 to 12, this actually implies that the consequences will take place. The consequences will occur. And then the Hanged Man is almost like, it's like, call it off. It's like turn the machine off. I don't know exactly what machine that is, but it's a sacrifice. Somebody's going to have to sacrifice, and it's probably going to be the American worker. You know what I memean? They're going to put all of this on everybody else.
So from the cards, you'd say, no, it isn't solved by.
I would see, because I'm going to say no.
I'm in that same boat. So I hesitate to say, yeah, that's it. But
well, and you guys know, because I don't understand the mechanics of I don't get the gimmick. I don't know the nuts and bolts of it all. I'm hesitant to say like a hard yes or no, but just to say I didn't know what, at all what we were talking about. This is consequences. This is an inevitable ending to death. We don't kick the can down the road when it comes to death. This is something that has been a long time coming, and it has to end. And we have a lot of Pluto and we have a lot of Neptune.
So yeah, that's part of the discussion. The whole discussion was amazing. Go check it out on the private road if you're into this type of stuff. But there she is. Oops. It's called The Debt Ceiling Chaos, BlackRock, Silver Short, XRP Ripple Case, and the New Crypto Bull. Really good discussion there. Go check it out. But what she says about the debt ceiling is pretty much what's happening right now. So Thursday is the first, and then Monday is the X date now. And we're getting this. Not great right now. McCarthy debt deal votes in question. DeSantis slams it as totally inadequate. Don't forget the Democrats. The Democrats want to destroy the U.S. system. And part of that destruction is the destruction of the U.S. dollar and the society. And they can blame the Republicans, or, Democrats can blame the Republicans, and Republicans can blame the Democrats. We, the people, should be blaming our congressional leaders, all of them. We need to take down the U.S. government from within. And a ending of the unbacked fiat monetary system. Remember, the U.S. dollar is the world's reserve currency. It's the last one standing. So you can't have like a U.S. dollar default and then China takes over, or some other crazy unbacked fiat money takes over. No, this is the end game, and that end game is going to be very interesting. That the Democrats don't think they're going to win the election, so wouldn't they want to implode the system? Absolutely. What about the deep state Republicans? Wouldn't they want to implode the system? Absolutely. So, right now, who knows? And that's kind of what we got from Jenny's cards, too. It's kind of who knows. But she did continue to draw cards, and she'd reshuffle and drew the Hanged Man card every time, 4 times in a row. So, yeah. And Hanged Man is in limbo, life in limbo. But the Death card said, we're done with the system. So we'll see what happens. Very interesting times, if you ask me. As far as silver, they're playing with, this is BlackRock now. BlackRock is the main rigger with taking on the silver short. It's been passed down through the generations. Now BlackRock is the entity. It's not a bank, so they don't have to report like a bank does. But it is clear from the deliveries of silver. Now this is the smallest, May was a delivery month, and it's the smallest delivery month ever. So something is going on. And who was delivering? We can see it right here, who was delivering. The largest deliverer was, of course, JP Morgan in their house account. If you combine the house account and the customer account, JP Morgan was the biggest deliverer of silver. But just an individual house account, which is more important, it was, of course, Bank of America right there with 458 contracts. So this is how the game is played. JP Morgan's customers, there's a lot of revolving door shit going on. But the other banks involved in the scam, so you have JP Morgan, you have Bank of America, you have Wells Fargo here. Massive, for them, massive 253 contracts is a massive delivery month. This is their house account, but they also took in 291. So who knows what the hell they're really doing? It's like a shell game with these banks. And then Standard Chartered Bank was the big deliverer with no taking in nothing. Standard Chartered Bank is pretty much, they were a huge silver rigger back in the day. Now they've been pretty much out of it, but they are one of the biggest deliverers this month, which is really interesting. Now, most of these contracts in the COMEX went over to the LBMA. That's why barely anything was delivered on the COMEX. I mean, the total delivery is right here, at the bottom. 2,694 contracts, which is exactly 2694 times 5,000. 13.4 million ounces. That's, I don't even remember a time in the past when you had a delivery month with such a tiny amount delivered. So that's the way it is. It is what it is. So it's, and I thought March was bad, which was a delivery month, and there was just over 15 million ounces. Now we have 13 million ounces for. Basically, the COMEX is shutting down. That's the futures and options side. Why? Because it's all criminals running it. It's 100%. All these trades, like on Friday, they traded 63,000 contracts. That's over 300 million ounces of electronic silver. Still, I mean, I've seen 2 billion ounce days. It's just so insane what we allow to be called a true fair market and a true way to determine a price. This is a futures and options contract. And there is no clean silver exchange on the planet. So we're stuck with using futures and options derivatives, silver derivatives, to determine the price for us. Oh, thank you, banksters. You've done your job well, Jeffrey Christian and friends, because you have effectively removed reality from the price of silver. That's why I'm a huge advocate of getting your silver in your own possession. Yeah, in your own possession. And yeah, oh darn, Bix, it's so hard to store that silver. Okay, you can risk having someone else hold it, but when the shit falls down, depending on how bad it is, I don't care how nice the people are, the guards are that are standing in front of SLV's the locked vault of silver, they're gonna take it. They have their family to take care of too. You can't fault them for that. It's survival mode. When you go into survival mode, you're going to grab what you can and damn the consequences type of thing. So, yeah, things like PSLV, the Sprott Silver ETF. I mean, I love those guys. Sprott is amazing, upstanding citizen in silver. But at the end of the day, it's a very easy spot for the Canadian government to come in and confiscate all that silver. Or the U.S. government to go in and confiscate all that silver. They can't really do it on an individual basis because most silver holders also have guns. Not that they're going to, get into a shootout with the U.S. government over a couple ounces of silver, but the reality of what's going on right now, anything is possible, and you cannot rely on anything working, anybody trying to preserve your value. That's your job. If you have assets, that's your job to control them. No one's going to be there for you when we go into Mad Max mode, which is coming, and it's a good thing. We need to get rid of the system. It should have never been created back in 1913. The Federal Reserve system in the U.S. should have never been created. So we've been kicking the can down the road for so long. I don't want to kick it to my kids. You don't want to kick it to your kids or their grandkids or their grandkids. I would rather pass on a sound system. I'll take the hit, I'll take the blame and the pain of having the system for my parents and grandparents because they didn't stop it. But I'm not. This is the buck stops here type of thing with silver investors, I think, right now, and everybody's saying, "What do I do? What do I do?" Go buy as much physical silver as you can get your hands on, and it's not an investment. It's just, number one, it's going to preserve your wealth through the transition. And number two, you're going to help take down the bad guys. Because the bad guys cannot handle life with silver prices over like $30. They freaked out last time and had to take JP Morgan's 1.2 billion ounces of physical silver and lease it into the market, dumping the price of silver for the past couple of years. They'll do any game they can. And then they move it out of the banking system to our friends over at BlackRock. BlackRock. Now, BlackRock has a very strong precious metals desk run by this guy, Evie Hambro, of the Hambro dynasty, the family lineage of the gold mining Hambros out of England. Evie Hambro runs their gold, silver, precious metals rigging department. They control SLV, the largest inventory on the planet, as far as we know, over 500. I think it's over 500 million ounces, or right at 500 million ounces right now. And they rig, and now they're taking the silver short position, as Ted Butler has identified. He hasn't identified it as BlackRock, but it's a non-bank, non-commercial entity that has taken the big short. And they've already grown it to over 50 million ounces, and it will grow bigger and bigger until the underlying entity that controls it is taken out, which has happened time and time again in the past. Think Bear Stearns, AIG, JP Morgan, although they still stand in power, but they got the biggest fine in history from rigging the silver and gold markets. And yes, it was Bart Chilton, a guy at the CFTC, said, we knew JP Morgan was rigging the market, had a massive short position, and didn't close it out like they were legally supposed to, but it was a political decision. That's what Bart Chilton said. A political decision not to shut down JP Morgan's rig job. And the political decision was made by Gary Gensler, the head of the SEC. Now, Gary Gensler was also the chief finance guy for Hillary Clinton. So he's a deep state guy. And, oh, by the way, he wrote the check for the Steele dossier, which implicates him in market or in vote rigging. Yeah, why aren't these people in jail? You know, these reports come out, you know, we got a special prosecutor to look at this, and then it shows blatant voting manipulation by the Clinton family, the Clinton cabal, with Gary Gensler right there at the head of, you know, signing off on the $1 million check for the Steele dossier, signing off on it. He knew what he was signing. Why didn't they interview him? Why aren't these people in jail yet? You know, they want to throw Trump in jail for, he said there was market rigging. Well, it looks like Trump was right. The insanity of humanity right now is, especially in Washington, nothing happens. Who cares if Hunter Biden's laptop, everybody knows it's full of crimes? It doesn't matter. You live in Washington. Crimes don't matter. And Congress can spout shit all they want. They've got plenty of evidence to go after anybody they want. And yet they aren't doing it. So you just watch the game and, you know, watch all these people, Republicans pissed off that, oh my God, did you see this report from the special investigator, blah, blah, blah. So what? Who went to jail and why didn't they go to jail? I loved it when in the hearings, Comey came on and said, yeah, he gave, I think it was the New York Times, some all the Trump information on the investigation that was top secret. And he sits there in Congress, tells them, yeah, I leaked that memo after I was fired from my position. I leaked that memo to the press. He said it under oath in Congress, and they did nothing about it. Completely illegal. Nothing gets done by these bastards. Anyway, if you guys don't know who BlackRock is, they're the largest investment advisor. BlackRock is the world's largest investment advisor, has become an increasingly influential player in Washington, D.C. Yes, it used to be Goldman Sachs had all the positions in the Treasury. Now it's BlackRock, because BlackRock doesn't have the same reporting requirements as a bank, because they're not a bank. So, the Biden administration is full of BlackRock people. Let's see. The firm has hired notable policymakers over the years, and at least 3 leaders with the New York-based asset manager on their resumes now hold prominent roles in Joe Biden's cabinet. Former BlackRock investment executive Brian Dees leads Biden's National Economic Council. We've talked about Wally Ademo a lot. This guy was number 2 he is number 2 currently. Let me see what. Biden tapped Wally Ademo, a former chief of staff of BlackRock, chief investment, and longtime Democrat Larry Fink, to serve as a top official at the Treasury Department. So Janet Yellen is the treasurer of the United States of America. She makes no decisions. She does nothing. But the guy right below her, Wally Ademo, does. That's the decider. That's the rigging guy. And then there's a whole bunch of it. It's knee-deep in the U.S. government. They oversee $10 trillion worth of investments. Runs a massive technology platform that oversees at least $21 trillion in assets. That technology platform is basically computer market rigging. BlackRock has hired many former government officials to senior roles. We've seen this song and dance before. Firm played a significant role in aiding the Federal Reserve in 2020. Aiding the Federal Reserve. Holy shit. Federal Reserve is supposed to be the be-all, end-all of money in the United States, but they didn't know what the fuck they were doing. And, oh, by the way, the Federal Reserve is like a bank. They are handcuffed on what they can do. But if they call it BlackRock, who doesn't report to the Federal Reserve, by the way, if it was a bank, they report to the Federal Reserve. They are part of the Federal Reserve's responsibilities. That's why everything's leaving the banks to go into the dark pools, which is BlackRock and other types like that. Federal Reserve tapped BlackRock during the last financial crisis in 2007 to 2009. It's basically so they can do off-the-books type of market rigging. So, yeah, that's what... I mean, now you know what BlackRock is. Now, it doesn't go into their precious metal stuff. Again, Evie Hambro is of the Hambro gold and silver family. Part of the deep state, part of the market riggers for centuries, the Hambro family. Was top military leadership in England back in the day. And I believe they were involved in the Opium Wars, which was kind of the beginnings of silver market manipulation in the 1850s. So, yeah, that's BlackRock. And they're saying, Fink, the head of BlackRock, may run for president. That's just crazy. Made lots of acquisitions. Anyway, BlackRock is not good. You hear that name, instantly think deep state, think maneuvers that can happen outside of the banking system, because the FDIC, the OCC, and the Fed, which are the regulators, and the SEC and the CFTC, regulators of the banks, they don't regulate BlackRock. Welcome to America, my friends. Looking forward to, in 23 hours, the release of the quarterly banking profile. The FDIC is pretty damn conservative, so I don't think they can lie all that much. Obviously, they can if they're forced to, but I think they're trying, because they released some discussions about, when the banks crash, here's what we need to do, and people really aren't aware of what their what the laws are as it pertains to what the FDIC insures. It all of a sudden came into play in January and February with the Silicon Valley Bank. Actually, it was March. Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, and First Republic. And all of a sudden, everybody said, "What do you mean? I have $300,000 in the bank, and I only get, you're going to take 50,000 of it?" Yep. If you don't have the proper FDIC insurance coverage, you are screwed. I've been talking about this for over a year now with Road to Ruta. I've shown you how to get extra coverage. You put a whole bunch of beneficiaries on your account, and you get $250,000 per beneficiary. But that now the banks are pushing back at that. That now they're saying that you can only have 5 beneficiaries. Some of the banks, 5 beneficiaries, $1.25 million. You can up your coverage of FDIC. Make sure you don't have any exposed money in these criminal institutions, and you shouldn't have money in the bank anyway. Banks are the ones causing the problem. They're the reason that the World Economic Forum is saying, oh yeah, we have to go to a world currency. We have to go CBDC. The reason isn't because it's so much better. The reason is that the old system is dying and so criminal and they don't know how to fix it. Biggest problem is mass rehypothecation of assets. Silver and gold we've known about for years. It trades 300, 400 times the underlying asset. But it's also U.S. Treasuries and stocks and bonds. Yes, you don't own your Apple stock. 5 people have a legal claim on that same share. And it's a musical chairs game. And when the music stops, everybody says, well, give me my certificate. Good luck with that. It's all at Seed and Company. I've talked about that many times. For over a decade, I've talked about that. So I'm looking forward to the banking profile, the quarterly banking profile. That's tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. Pacific time. What do I think it will show? Weakening in the assets that are impaired on the bank balance sheets. And a huge addition, lots of banks are going on the troubled bank list, which has certain criteria. Now, mind you, Signature Bank, Silicon Valley Bank, and First Republic Bank, none of those banks that just got bailed out were on the troubled bank list. It's a very secretive type of list. But we won't know who the banks are, but they do show how many banks are on that list. And it's going to it should balloon because this is the first quarter of this year when the banks were having all that turmoil. And basically the FDIC has to show their cards and say, this is why we were panicking in November and had that meeting about FDIC insurance. So very interesting stuff. I find this interesting that Michael Hugh, the acting head, not the comptroller of currency, but the acting comptroller of currency. Number 2 guy is the JP Morgan guy who really runs the show. But he came out in January, he talked about detecting, preventing, and addressing too big to manage banks, which are the mega banks. So everybody knows it's coming. The question is what day and where will you be situated? Will you have your assets in your own possession? Will you have gold and cryptos for the future? Or silver, the number 1 asset you should own? And if you have gold, go swap it for 80 ounces of silver as fast as you can. You won't get fully 80 ounces because they want to do you got to pay commission to the dealer who's doing it. But ask around. Go to your local guys. Say, how many ounces of silver will you give me for this 1 ounce gold eagle? And don't forget, premiums are added. Premiums are added even when they're buying it back. You say, hey, this is worth a hell of a lot more than the price of gold because look at the premiums on silver eagles or on gold eagles. And silver eagles, Jesus, you could probably sell them for 10, 12 bucks over spot. So keep that in mind. But clearly the head of the CFTC is getting ready for something. And then something always hits me and then I'll run with it for a couple weeks or months and try to get to the bottom of it. And it's usually huge. And why it hits me, I don't know. But insurance companies. Insurance companies are a lot like banks because you give them the money and they invest it and they think they're better at investing. So they'll have enough money to pay off the insurance when it's needed and things like that. That's what Buffett does with all his insurance money. But the reality is they have to hold a lot of very safe treasuries, which have imploded. So all these insurance companies are sitting with impaired assets on their books. So that's going to be the next thing. And it's massive amounts of money. It's not as big as the global banking system, but it's up there. I think it's number 2. And their assets are even more impaired because they have to be safer than these big banks. And complete cluster pluck. So keep an eye on that. Again, if you want more information on Road to Ruta, check out the private road. Check out the Jenny Moonstone readings and all the cool stuff that we got in here. You want to join the private road, go to roadtoruta.com, hit subscribe today, and we will send you the coolest coin ever made, the Ruta Lives coin. And if you want to buy silver, go to Andy Shackman or your local. Start with your local. If you don't trust your local guys, contact Andy Shackman at Miles Franklin. Send him an email, info at milesfranklin.com, MILES Franklin.com, and he'll set you guys up. Say you're from Road to Ruta, and he'll take good care of you. He's taking care of so many Road to Ruta members and great people over there. So go check it out. I'll talk to you guys later.